Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Thursday night Anamkara meditation program. With all my heart, with all my love, I welcome you to our program this evening. Thank you so much for joining us and bringing the power of your practice, the power of your presence to this evening and sharing it with everybody. And one of the extraordinary things that we know about, the field of consciousness is that's where we are one. Now, in the physical world, we can be separate. Somebody can be in Hawaii, somebody can be in another part of the country. But in this unified field of consciousness, that's where unity is. And really, that's the whole aim of the mystic traditions and meditative practices, is to come to know that pure essential consciousness, our true nature, then informs all of the rest of our lives. So thank you for being ones doing those practices, especially at this time where it's so critical that people are carrying a higher wisdom, a higher knowing, a higher pursuit, and bringing that into this world that's so deeply afflicted. So again, thank you for doing that and making meditation and practices and a part of your life. Right now we're in this holiday season, especially in the Judeo-Christian traditions, the holidays of Passover and the holy days around Easter. And they're unified in the sense that they speak to how people have experienced the grace of the divine as a protection, as a refuge. And we seek out the divine as a refuge, so that we're getting free of the suffering of the ordinary mind, free of the suffering produced by the ordinary mind, and the ordinary minds of others on this planet that seem to be so scorching our planet right now. So very critical that we have that place of practice and refuge, and how it ties into our religious traditions, but especially in the mystical ends of all the traditions. It's aiming at how do we come to know that divine presence, that refuge, as the truth of who we are, that's accessible at all times, in all places. And so the practices lead us towards that. 2 weeks ago, we were discussing some of the unique things that are going on in sort of the conditioning of the mind during this time in history that's leading to so much more suffering. The Eastern traditions, the mystical traditions across all different religious practices, look at the mind as the great obstacle, and that it's the conditioned mind that gets in the way. And so, especially in the meditative traditions, cutting through that root conditioning of the mind, that's especially tied up in limited identification, in the ego mind. So 2 weeks ago, we were talking about two sort of broad historical dynamics that have made that conditioning particularly toxic. And one has to do with the toxic notion of being a separate individual, survival of the fittest, and how that as a paradigm served at one time for being able to support the survival of the species, but not now. We have to recognize our place in the web of life and be cognizant of our intimate connection with everything and every living being on this planet, so we can help create the conditions where we all flourish together. So that's a huge shift that has to happen evolutionary-wise, because we keep going on this individualism, survival of the fittest kind of paradigm. Well, it's going to destroy, as it has been, our planet and our chances of surviving even as a species. We also talked about the conditioned patterns of the mind that has been tied up in the toxic side of patriarchy and toxic masculinity that really came in 10,000 years ago. That prior to that, the divine feminine was the image and archetype of the divine that we related to as human beings and united us and kept us in harmony. So this broad dynamic of when that sort of dominator mode came in with the patriarchal traditions, well, that has also stifled and limited all of humanity, and especially the feminine, especially women, but the whole feminine side of humanity in general, the compassionate, loving, kind, caring, interconnectedness vision of humanity has been suppressed. So we're trying to historically get rid of these old toxic paradigms. And the meditative practices that we do really aim at getting the root of any limiting notion of who we are. So even while we want to change those kinds of patterns, the mystic traditions, the Eastern, especially the yogic and Buddhist traditions, really aim at getting at any form of limited identification is an obstacle to knowing the truth of who you are, the infinitude of being, whether we call that Buddha consciousness, Christ consciousness, divine infinite consciousness. Those are all names or words for what's beyond all of them. So they really have looked at, what's this pattern that catches us and gets us caught in what's called primal ignorance. It's called avidya. And both the yogic system and the Buddhist system looks at avidya, this primal ignorance, as the root cause of suffering. And it's not only the ignorance of not knowing who we are, because if that was just we didn't know who we are, we'd be at least seeking, who am I? Who am I? But in addition to not knowing the truth of who we are, what's happened is this overlay of wrong identification, being identified with the body, the roles we play, the genders we inhabit, the feelings, the thoughts, the beliefs, all that stuff that moves through the mind that captures our sense of who am I. And we identify with groups, we identify with culture, we identify with family. These are all limited bound forms of identification that are all cutting us off from knowing the infinitude of being. So the practices in the meditative traditions and yogic traditions are really aimed at giving us the direct experience of who we are beyond that mind and all that it is wrongly identified with. So the yogis would say the true self, sort of the capital S self, is the infinite, beyond words, ineffable, unspeakable. That's the truth of who we are. We consider that to not be ourself. We may even believe in a God or a Godhead, but it's distant, it's separate, it's not who I am. So what happens is we disidentify with the truth of who we are, and then we identify with a false self, unlimited self, an ephemeral self, states of mind, states of body, all those kinds of things, the roles that we play. So over and over again, you can see in the practices and in contemplations, in various texts and study, they're all aimed at deconstructing the false self to open the space for what's already present, what's already fully present. Your divine, sublime, infinite, boundless nature has never been reduced. It's never been absent. So what we're really doing is getting the blinders off so we can see what's already fully present. And that's what all the practices aim at. They're aimed at both quieting the mind, because one of the things we know about the nature of mind is it loves movement. It goes after movement. You sit and you try and be really still, and you hear things. It's a sound. It's movement of sound. You might have something come through your visual field, movement in the visual field. Thoughts are moving through the space of consciousness. So attention, mind, goes after movement over and over again. And it's why we cultivate stillness and steadiness, is to get out of the conditioned pattern of going after all the movement. Because if we're addicted to going after movement, then we're going to be, every time something moves, we're going to go chasing after it. It's like a cat with a little light, and you see them jumping around trying to follow the light. Well, that's the mind. As soon as it sees something shiny moving, it's after it. So it takes this sort of inward turn of our attention and this use of our will to say, no, I'm stepping back from it. I'm letting that all go. So in Ashtanga Yoga, in the 8 limbs of yoga, one of the practices is called pratyahara. It's withdrawing the mind from the senses. It's often depicted like a turtle pulling its limbs into the shell. We're literally withdrawing our consciousness from all the activity of the senses so that, again, our attention can go beyond movement, beyond mind, to know the truth of who we are. And that's where we come to rest in what can then inform our lives. Buddha talked about it as the 4 immeasurables. The boundless loving compassion, the boundless wisdom, the boundless unshakable equanimity, peace, the boundless rapturous joy. The yogis had a 4-syllable mantra or word for that, Satchidananda. Sat, pure being consciousness, eternal. Chit, it's conscious, it's not just inert, it's conscious, it's aware, it's fully aware. And it's in a state of loving, rapturous ecstasy, ananda. So they point at this fundamental qualities of what we are. And it's the mind that calls them qualities. It's really that state of knowing that is beyond the mind and beyond differentiation of qualities. Those are descriptive words that the mind used to try to convey what the direct experience is, but the experience is beyond that. And it transcends and subsumes all of everyday life. So that's why, it's very confusing. People will say, wait a minute, how can I be at peace? There's so much turmoil in the world. There's so many horrible things happening. There's so much violence, oppression, what's happening economically, what's happening in governments, what's happening with that. All these things that the ordinary mind goes, I'll never be happy as those things are going on. That joy, the ananda, that mystics are talking about, isn't that. The mind is completely used to dealing with, I'm happy because, I'm joyous because, I'm at peace because. All conditioned. There's a cause. There are underlying causes. There are underlying conditions that have to be met in order for the mind to have that kind of peace, to have that kind of joy, to have that kind of steadiness. But what the ancient sages and all the way up to this day discover over and over again is that, we're talking about an entirely different domain of those experiences. They're unconditioned. They're uncaused. That's why they're eternal. Everything about the mind is caused and ephemeral. So the mind can be profoundly concerned about all that's going on, but when we're informed by the state of meditation, by the qualities of our true nature, then we are buoyed, we're carried, we're uplifted. We're then capable of walking through the fires of the world in a very different state. A state that still sees that pain and suffering, still wants to do everything it can to remove the suffering of all beings. It's not an either or. That's another thing that the ordinary mind gets caught in. It's very much either or, black and white, it's this or that. The infinite transcends and subsumes, holds it all in the divine embrace. So that we can come to know that fullness of our being, the fullness of our nature, and walk through the world and deal with it and in the best way possible. So that we're bringing these higher qualities. And we've seen that. We've seen that in great masters like Thich Nhat Hanh, walking peace into the conflict of Vietnam, even being reviled by his own countrymen and shunned and having to leave Vietnam because of that. His presence, his steadiness, his abiding in that quality helped to transform everything and bring about peace and an end to that war. We saw it in Gandhi and what he did. So we know, because there are living examples And as they're all humans, we're humans too, we have this innate capacity. This is where we're going. This is where the practices take us. Not painting a rosy picture of a reality, is saying, no, I can meet the reality, informed by the transcendent, informed by the eternal, informed by the wisdom, the knowledge, the loving compassion that's inexhaustible. Not the little cup of it that the mind has and gets worn out very quickly. No, there's this ocean of that then informs our lives. So we're really aiming at knowing that, and that is going to both transform our mind and empower us to be present in the world in a very different way, so that we don't get caught in all that's going on and add to it. Because when we're in ignorance and floundering and flailing about in our own suffering, we're creating suffering for ourselves and others. And that's so much of what we see. We see people floundering and creating suffering, looking to get filled by material possessions, wealth, power, and just creating more and more suffering for others. So we're very clear on being able to see that, and see that for ourselves individually, and ultimately what we're moving towards as a collective, as humanity, is to get free of these toxic patterns of wrong identification, which drive us to try and fill a hole that can't be filled by possessions and external ephemeral things, to come to rest in the wisdom that allows us then to walk compassion, love, kindness, strength into the world. That's what we're headed towards. So it's a state. It's the living state of meditation, right? So we do the practices so that we can come to know and experience the continuous state of meditation. So I wanted to read this. It's called Abide. Abide in peace while walking in the world, and peace will spread around you. Abide in love while walking in the world, and your senses will perceive only God. Abide in God while walking in the world, and you will know true freedom. Abide in the one who alone makes this possible, and you will see only the one everywhere. That's the radical state of freedom that is the state of meditation. That's what it means to abide in the truth of who you are. Because the truth of who you are is the truth of all beings. Divine, eternal, boundless in its nature. So coming to live in that, becoming grounded in that, that then gives us the strength to walk through the fires of the world. It doesn't suddenly make like, oh, all I see is, flowers and sunshine. No, we see the suffering that all beings are afflicted by because of that ignorance. We also see beyond that. We see the eternality of existence that's untouched by that, that gives rise to the consciousness that gives birth to all these ephemeral forms. But we get to know the root of that, the eternal existence of that. We can abide in that and walk that into the world. And what we start to see is, we touch into it in a meditative practice. And then, we come out, so to speak, of meditation. That's the mind disidentifying with that state and re-inhabiting the ordinary state of mind. So we start to get clear, what does the mind do and what does our attention do? Right? As it goes in and out of the portal that goes into this state of unity consciousness, meditative state, this integrative state. Well, when we leave it behind, we're back in the mind and we're back in identification with that. Over time, even being in the mind, we start to hold that steady experience of the steady presence, the unshakable existence of the truth of who we are. And so we start to feel that infusing us, giving us peace and calm, when other times we might have just been reactive. Giving us the boundless love, compassion that arises spontaneously when we see suffering or we see a loved one. We start to see that that quality of consciousness can be sustained, is sustained by its own being, nature. So the more we are getting the little ego mind out of the way, the more we're experiencing the fullness of that being. And it's not that the ego mind disappears. It's a valuable instrument for working in this domain. It's just not who you are. You have a mind, you're not the mind. You have an ego, it's not you who you are. Who are you? So we started out. Who am I? If we at least raise some doubts about who we thought we were, we start to become a deeper seeker. Seeker, what's the truth of who I am? And that this mind is then going to get transformed in that same process. That process of meditation unfolding, the process of engaging in yogic practices, transformative practices from mystic traditions, from the Buddhist traditions, from Sufi traditions, from Judaic traditions, from Christian traditions. They all have the traditions for helping to purify the mind and turn it into a worthy servant of your divine self. So that rather than the mind trying to just be, oh, I want this, I want that, I don't want this, I don't want that, caught up in that, it just begins to listen. It's listening to the infinite. How it's calling to you right here, right now. What's it calling? What's it saying? How's it going to inform your action? How's it going to direct you to be in service of that one, in service of the divine, no matter what we call it, in service. That's what the ego mind was created to do, to serve. Through serving, it's bringing love, compassion, wisdom, steadiness, peace into the world. When we abide in that one, then the ordinary mind and body walk these into the world. So we come to abide in it. And then it's not just when we're sitting with eyes closed and not moving. We see, oh, that's consciousness. That is the state of unity, the state of meditation. It subsumes everything. We're walking in that field of consciousness. We're surrounded in this cloud of light that is that consciousness. And we can walk that into the world. We can walk it into any place. Walk it into the halls of power. We need to transform government and economics. Walk it into conflict and situations. But we're walking it in as that presence that's filled with love, filled with the vision of unity, that's not an enemy, that's my own self. How do I love that? How do I bring that love, communicate that love, pass on that love and compassion? Now the mind is getting oriented to its real purpose. How do I serve best in this moment and the next moment? That's part of the unfolding of the transformative process that is built by repeated practice and repeated immersion in a state of meditation. It transforms mind and body into servants of the divine, filled with that loving compassion. That's what we're capable of. And that's what we need, and that's a huge evolutionary leap we have to make for humanity to get out of this separation, this divide, this others and denigration of others, and relying on the wrong identification that the ego mind creates. And then once it's identified with one thing, then other things that are different, it wants to denigrate those. Wrong color, wrong sex, wrong gender, wrong identification, wrong idea, wrong party, wrong. It just does all that. So we're getting free of that. And then we walk that freedom into the world. We communicate the possibility to others just by our nature. They can be free. And they can live in this boundless state of joy and of love. It's beyond any material abundance. It's a fullness that is beyond speech. We come to know that. And we walk that into the world. And it's radical that way. It's revolutionary that way. When you know the fullness of who you are, you've stepped out of capitalism. Capitalism is about, you'll feel better if you buy this, own this, possess this, have this stature, have this status, have this whatever. Oh no, I'm full, I'm complete, just as I am. And I hope everyone comes to know that. I want everyone to be in that state of freedom and to dance in that, delight in that, create from that, see the ways we can all flourish together, how we can share all the resources this extraordinary planet, our home, has, enough by far for everyone to flourish. That's what we're capable of. That's what we can create in this world. So we do the practices to come to know that state, live that state, and walk that into the world, no matter how blazing its fires might be. You have that steadiness of being right here, right now, always here and now. Always. So to come to know that better, we're going to do a practice, and it's a simple practice of we're going to chant a mantra. We're going to chant Om Kali Ma, Kali Namo Namah for a few minutes. And mantra is one of the great potent practices that invokes the state. Mantra is known as the sound form of the divine. It's a throb, it's a vibration. It's a vibration of consciousness that we start out becoming familiar with it through sound form. Om Kali Ma, Om Kali Ma. We'll chant it. The chanting practice is also very beneficial because when you chant, it has a natural form of pranayama, this control of the breath that calms and steadies the body. So whether you chant fully or just chant softly, by chanting, you're also regulating the breath, and that changes the flow of prana. But it also changes many things that we know physiologically and neurophysiologically about the body. When you slow and deepen the breath, it has very profound effects on the brain, the vagus nerve, down-regulating stress responses. All these good things happen. So chanting is a very beneficial practice, both in terms of putting this divine sound form of the infinite into the world and having it vibrate throughout our body, right down to the marrow of our bones. It's also regulating the body, regulating the mind and brain, and helping them to calm. But then when we're done chanting, now it's just a silent repetition, over and over. Om Kali Ma, Om Kali Ma, Om Kali Ma. And we might say it fast, slow, we might say it in coordination with the breath. But we're invoking the Great Mother, Kali, the Great Mother, who is the refuge, right? Who the sort of the mythology of Kali is that she cut off the head of this famous demon. But the demon was a symbol of the mind. And that every time you seem to just get rid of a thought, 3 more thoughts spring up. And that's how that demon was depicted in the myth. But she's the root power of it all. So she literally pulls the root power and life force out of the demon so it's gone. That's what it means to free us from the negativity, the wrong identification, all the stuff of the mind. We do that simply by keeping our attention focused on Om Kali Ma, Om Kali Ma, with an awareness of, I am that. I'm a throb of that consciousness. I am Kali, Om Kali Ma. I'm the mantra. I'm the source of mantra. on the Shakti of the mantra, the power of the mantra, on the consciousness of the mantra. Oh, now I'm Chidananda Rupaha. I am consciousness and bliss. I'm Kali. That's what is underlying that. So we also want to be separating our conscious, our ordinary conditioned mind, who thinks it's, I'm just as a little person sitting here going, Om Kali Ma, I don't know what's going on, but I'm just going to do it. No, we don't want to hold that awareness. That's still holding on to wrong identification. We want to keep shifting our identity to, I am the infinite one. I am the boundless one. I've taken the form of mantra to free all beings, to free this being and all beings, because all beings are one being. That we know that we practice that awareness, that attitude of approach. That's what it means to do the practice. Set aside the old habit of identifying with just this little mind and body and start shifting the identification to what's the truth of who I am. Tattvamasi, thou art that. You're the infinite. You're the sublime one. That's all there is. Om Kali Ma, Om Kali Ma, Om Kali Ma. So that's what we'll be doing after we stop chanting. You just keep immersed in that throb till the mind becomes totally still. There's not even a movement of thought. It's just the clear light of awareness illuminating all as yourself. When you're in that, no need to repeat mantra. That is the consciousness of mantra. If the mind starts moving again with a thought, a feeling, a memory, or whatever, then you pick up the mantra again and go, oh no, I'm just going to dissolve that back into Om Kali Ma, Om Kali Ma, Om Kali Ma. So that all dissolves. And that might be the entire time you're sitting. You're just doing it over and over and running that sublime throb of the infinite through the body, through the mind, clearing out all that needs to be cleared, coming home to the truth of who you are. So we're going to chant for a few minutes now and then just sit in that stillness. Mata Kali Mahadevi Ki Jai. Om Kali Ma Kali Namo Namah. 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 Om The mind just rests in that silent repetition. Om Gaima, Om Gaima, Om Gaima. The awareness of I am that, and the infinite and boundless. I'm free. Om Gaima, Om Gaima, Om Gaima. Kali Namo Namah. Om Kali Mahadevi ki jai. And we end with this prayer. May all our practices truly benefit everyone, and may all beings know complete freedom from suffering. Namaste. Om Kaima. Om Kaima. And rest. Rest in the mantra. Rest in the awareness. Om Kaima. Rest in the awareness. I'm infinite, boundless, eternally free. Let the mind take refuge in the truth of who you are, all times and all places. And by coming back to the mantra over and over throughout the day, we take refuge in that. We come to inhabit that, live that, live meditation. I want to thank you for being ones doing the practices, and just by your very nature and your commitment to practice, helping to relieve the suffering in this world, helping to uplift, helping to transform what's happening in the world. We do that step by step, breath by breath, taking refuge in the divine and walking that into this world. So thank you, and thank you for coming this evening and sharing the power of your practice, the power of your divine presence with everyone. And so thank you. And I look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks. That'll be May 1st will be the next time we meet. And then the new course starts on that Sunday, May 4th. So I hope you'll be able to join us for that.